Transport.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Intune.training, the place to learn how to use Microsoft Intune, the Steve and Adam show with Steve and Ben and Dano and Matt, round 2. Since this technically is a standalone separate episode, you guys want to introduce yourselves again?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Please go back to the previous episode. No, I'm just kidding. My name is Matt Gall. I'm responsible for a lot of the endpoint security stuff that you see on Windows, security integrations, that sort of stuff in Intune, Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Also, up until actually, I still own endpoint protection in Configuration Manager as well. So, kind of hold 2 hats. That's me. Dano, what do you do?
Hey everyone, I'm Mike Danoski. I'm a senior product manager in the Microsoft Endpoint Manager team. I'm responsible for Windows policy, as well as the just policy, the engine on which it gets delivered down to devices over MDM and things like that. And very much focus on device configuration to Matt's endpoint security, if you will.
Well, that sounds really interesting. We should probably do a video with you on that.
Yeah, just go ahead and click here. And
I'm sorry, your hand was too big. Can you try again?
And click here for the latest in everything device config.
We got
We'll
it.
wait.
All right. Here we go.
And then we got the Aussie Goobers. What's up, guys?
Hello.
Hey, Steve's still at my house. So I can't get him to leave.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. One day I'll leave.
And,
Maybe.
And I got my new pup Graham hanging out back here. It's a new guy.
Hey, puppy.
He's pretty big.
He's not.
He doesn't move much.
Yeah.
I
He's
know.
not seeming to
He's
be
well
trying
trained.
to do much.
Very good.
Yeah. Okay, so Matt, this is your first time on with us, and so can we ask? I mean, I hear you have a pretty interesting hobby on the side. Can we?
Yeah, what hobby was that?
The one. I mean, like I found this picture on the internet. I think this might be you.
I see.
Is this what you do, or is this like?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit of both. Yeah. So yes, you're calling it out. I am a hockey official. I do college and high school. In the winter, start up soon. Do USA hockey and local high school hockey primarily around here. Stop doing other stuff, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. Long story there, but the short answer is when you get old, your body stops working as well as it used to, and you can either be basically hurt for 4 days after you do something, or you can just get out on the ice and do what you like to do and, be okay afterwards. So there's a longer story about like how I was a goalie. I was a goalie for 20 years. It's a whole thing. Maybe we can do a whole episode on that. Intune training, but with hockey.
/hockey.
Intune training, the side gigs.
Yeah.
That enforces security on and off the ice.
Yeah. There it is. I might put that in my email signature from now on. Or maybe my Teams message. We'll see what happens.
So what I'm hearing is you're a rule follower guy. You like having some rules around things and stuff. It sounds like.
Yeah, if anybody I work with is watching this, they know that I like to know where the rule starts and begins, so that way I can work just outside on the margins about 90% of the time. So, I like to know the rules in and out. I'm a particular on details, as everybody would probably tell you. Yeah, for sure.
Well, very cool. So, speaking of details, we have details of all of the cool bits and pieces of MDE, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint,
XL,
and its security tools and things that we can configure in Intune.
Yeah, sure. So I figure or not.
Whatever you'd like.
whatever
What would you like to talk about, Matt?
Shout out to Matt. Shout out to Matt's MMS session on how hybrid join works.
Was it one word? It doesn't.
Well,
That was a joke. It was a joke.
if you
Please
attended
don't.
my session, you would have seen it does. But yes, yes. Let's see here. Let's see what we got here.
He's had enough of your stuff. Yeah,
You seem like-
we have to add the stream. There we
You have to
go.
add the
Let's,
stream? Oh man, I don't want it. Oh, okay. All right. This is.
You might want to zoom.
Oh, yeah,
zoom.
I work at Microsoft. I've never seen technology quite like what's used here at Intune training. It's top of the line, top tier.
I mean, you don't have to lie.
Best I've seen anywhere, I think, really. Okay. So yeah, I think maybe
I'm really hurt by these comments. You're gonna zoom in more. We're gonna get a lot of comments about this, and I mean, comments are good on videos because it drives traffic in YouTube. But
how much do you want me to zoom
not
in?
these. I think that's
a little bit too much, I think.
You're
Leave
looking
a
at.
comment below for your favorite Zoom level.
I do want a little call out to our UX team. Like, even though we zoomed all the way in, look how well this console still works. Like, isn't that?
Oh, it scales really well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Anyway, let's see if I can back out. 175% seems like a fair compromise. Yeah.
That looks good.
That's perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now that we figured out how to zoom.
I like your org name too.
Put Windows on it. Yes, has been mine for quite some time. And it is a routable domain, so feel free to send me email so my Defender for Cloud alerts go crazy. Okay, so I think probably the first place to start this out is, I think Dano can probably relate. We always get the question, what do I use? Do I use endpoint security? Do I use device config? How do I pick like what to do, where, when, how? And I think the goal that Dano and I are driving towards, and I think we've pretty much convinced most people here, is that it shouldn't matter where you do what, where, when, and how, right? I think, Dano sort of talked about in the last episode, which you should go watch if you haven't done it already. Top tier commentary from the peanut gallery, if I do say so myself, is make sure we build a unified settings platform where everything's built off of the same exact definitions in the back end. And that's really important. Intune is scaled. It's pretty elastic in the last 5 years. We've gone from, Dano, how many settings were in Intune 5 years ago?
7 years ago, there were like 30.
30.
They were all Windows Phone settings.
Right. Yeah. So we've gone from 30 to like 15,000 something, right?
Yeah.
So
you can add your own.
And you can
yeah,
it's literally limitless, right? I don't know about that. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But
Was that a challenge?
Yeah. So the important point here is like the console and everything has grown over time, right? And the big thing that we want to sort of, push in the future, the thing that we want people to feel like in the future they can do is they can use the area they want to use in the console, whatever feels right for their workflows and how it works, and they have access to what they need to do their job. That's the endpoint. That's the whole thing. So for security professionals, they may not need all of the different tools and things that you find inside of the regular device node or the regular node of Intune, right? I mean, if you think about how security professionals work and the workloads and how all this stuff happens, they probably don't care about scripts or update rings or enrollment device. Like they care about what the impact of those things are. Is the device up to date? Am I running scripts? So on and so forth. But they don't fall inside of normal job duties, right? So to ask security admins to come into this space to do work can be overwhelming. I know. It's crazy, right? So for endpoint security
guys to do work is overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I heard.
That's what I heard.
So the point here is like, let's help security professionals operate the way they operate in tools they're used to using, right? Let's help give them the tooling that they can use to configure the built-in components, the inbuilt components in a way that makes sense and in a way that promotes transparency between IT and security. Because one industry trend you'll see, it's going to continue to happen for the foreseeable future, is security and management, like they're two separate circles of the same sort of Venn diagram. They just keep overlapping more and more, right? So you really have a choice. Your choice is, does IT and security meet on the endpoint for the first time, or do they meet in the service for the first time, right? And at Microsoft, we believe that we are uniquely positioned to allow them to meet in the service. So that way, as an IT professional, troubleshooting things that happen on the device, you can see like what security is sending to the device. You can see different things like AV exclusions. You can see antivirus. You can see like all these different settings and configurations. You don't have to wonder, right? As long as you have the right level of permissions, RBAC, et cetera. And then, same thing with security teams. If they're in the console and they can see settings and stuff getting delivered to a device, it gives them a conversation starter with IT teams. So it helps brings everybody together, right? And in the future, what we sort of want to do here is we want to bring in like, antivirus templates. Like Dano talked in the last episode about how the unified settings platform, or, whatever you want to call it, it has sort of 3 configuration mechanisms. It has sort of settings catalog, which is your shopping cart. It has templates, which are like, hey, I don't know what to configure. Show me the settings that I should be considering. And then there's baselines, which is the settings that I should be configuring plus the values I should configure them to. That's the easiest way to think about this. Everything that you see here in this console is just a template. So long term, I think we want to get to the spot where if I have permission to configure antivirus settings and I'm here or in the devices blade, I see that template in both places. I see the policy in both places. It's not about what I'm configuring or where I'm configuring it. It's about who I am as an end user and what I have permission to configure. So we have a lot of goals that we want to do, like things like RBAC per template and that sort of stuff. But that's always sort of where we start, is like, hey, what should I be using? How should I be using it? Does that make sense? Or you want to poke any holes in that story? Or
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. We should probably write a blog on this. Mike and I have been talking about the blog for a long time. We should probably just do this. Yeah.
The other thing is like some of the basic settings you might find this in the settings catalog. I almost said security catalog. You may find some of these settings in the settings catalog, like some firewall settings and things like that. But we can, just in the same way we talked in the previous episode about resource access profiles and Wi-Fi having everything all in one place being nice. We can do things like with firewall rule, because you're configuring that area, we can put some extra handling around it to make it a little easier for you and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then, on top of making things easier, the other thing that endpoint security does is allows you to expand the scope of devices you can deploy policy to. And that's sort of unique to the endpoint security blade. Right? The devices blade is so yesterday in that it can only deploy to MDM devices, right? So the endpoint security blade, in addition to MDM devices, we can deploy to devices managed by Configuration Manager, and we can also deploy to devices that are managed entirely through MDE, right? Through our security management for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, or as I call it, MDE attach, right? So like those are the 2 areas that the endpoint security blade sort of differs, right? Because we want a single pane for security management. And my friends in Defender who co-own security management with me, they want this too, right? Like it's too much to try and move configuration from one place to the other. And it gets really complex when you start talking about configuring built-in settings for an OS, right? Because everybody knows Defender AV is built into the OS, right? So there's a bunch of different ways to configure it. So let's put it in one spot. So I wanted to show some of that, show like how this works. I think maybe, I don't know, like we should start with some AV stuff. Probably show some attack surface reduction stuff if you guys don't know about that. Maybe talk about tamper protection. Does that sound okay? We'll go that way.
Sounds awesome.
What do you recommend folks start with if they have, like, they're like me and they have no idea about security?
You have no idea about security. You should start with an Intune training video.
Maybe this one.
We're so sorry.
Maybe this one. Maybe we can go back and make this episode 0, season 1. Just have a season 1, episode 1. Yeah, I think Dan's trying to set me up here. I think what the
Just trying to.
yeah, I know you are.
I would vote. I would vote for AV because likely, if you're here, you've probably already done some AV at some point.
Are you talking going alphabetical there, Adam?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there's not actually an alphabetical
I typically
order.
start at disk encryption.
Yeah, we go down to account.
Yeah, actually, that's a fair call. So one of the most common scenarios that I ran into when I was still doing this stuff was disk encryption was the first thing that anyone ever really did. Because the first thing they would do is like they would set compliance based on is your device like configured with BitLocker. So they would go disk encryption, then antivirus, then firewall. I don't know whether we want to do it that order.
Yeah, we can do it that order. I think maybe first we should start at the compliance policy in question and talk about what they do.
Sure.
Because that'd probably be super helpful. So if I come over to device compliance real quickly, Ben giving great ideas as usual. We should probably ignore, we should probably scrub this video for anything I'm not supposed to show. I'm not sure what's flagged in my tenant, so we'll see what happens.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine.
Yeah.
Get our video editors right on it. Promise.
Yeah, if we've got to comment anything out or block anything out, we'll just delete the video. It's fine.
Yeah.
If you see a small floating hand
Problem solved.
Great.
covering up part of
Great. Okay, great.
Don't look at this.
Here we go. Okay, so there's 2 settings to trigger BitLocker measurement. Does everybody know this? Maybe people don't
Yes.
know this. Okay, there's 2. There's the one on the top here, device health attestation backed, or Windows health attestation backed, WHA, DH. We can't, whatever we name it. It's attestation backed, right? And this one is the one here at the top. And then there's another one down here. Let's see. I think it's underneath device system. Require encryption of data storage on the device. There are 2. Anybody want to guess what the difference is between the 2? Anybody know? Besides Dano? Dano can't talk because he just helped the customer through this.
This guy
Go ahead.
The difference between
So,
what?
you
Between
can go, Adam, if you want.
require BitLocker
Mm-hmm.
and require encryption of data storage.
Oh, because one is about the storage, and the other one, I have no idea. All data.
It's about
on the,
encryption.
First,
It's
right.
literally
It comes down to the engine that's being used for.
Can you click on the
compliance
eye?
policy.
I think the
So
eye will
if
tell
you
us.
Nope.
Yep, that's what I
No.
thought. Yeah,
Yeah, that's really good. It's good.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know,
So
I love a bang up like sort of job here. So yeah, so there's 2. Yeah, he's completely right. Like the problem here is the first one here is attestation backed. Uses attestation at boot to determine if the device had BitLocker turned on. And then this device status one, the require encryption, uses something called the device status CSP, which queries the engine actively to see if it's turned on. They have very different jobs. A lot of people configure this one on top and pretty much say, hey, I'm mad because I have to reboot my device in order for this one to become compliant, right?
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. The reason is, if you actually read the documentation for this setting, you'll notice that it specifically says this measures the BitLocker status the last time the device was offline. So turns out it can't assert that until the device goes offline. So that's why that happens, in case you need to know. We see customers that do a combination of these 2 settings, maybe using a grace period. You should figure out what works best for your organization. So that way they get the benefits of health-backed attestation for BitLocker and the measurement offline. It's a more assurant operation. And then use that in combination with device status, CSP. We're actively talking to the BitLocker team about how we make that better too. So
now, Matt, I noticed that you started in the security node to get here, but these are the same compliance policies you can get to from the devices node as well, right?
Yeah, if you look at my breadcrumbs here, yeah, it's actually the same panes. Like endpoint security has several items that are built in here. Remember, it's baked around security professionals. So we think they'll need to use compliance policy. We think that's high on the security team's list usually. So you can go directly to device compliance through here. This is the same compliance policies you'd see if you go back in the other area of my tenant, right? And then the other one that we have in here is conditional access. We've actually brought the conditional access pane from Azure AD directly in here.
I see that same exact screen in my environment.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. I need to PIM up, and I'm not going to do that right now. So, if you were PIMmed up, you would see the conditional access policy. I'm not PIMmed up. That's why I got a 403.
Is that term coined already, or did we just coin
PIMmed up?
It is
Don't tell the
now.
marketing team. They're not on my good side recently. So, okay. So, yes, that's where we can get that. So, that's first thing is disk encryption. If you go into our disk encryption profile, you should see all the settings that are available for this. This is one thing you're not going to want to see because there's 2 profiles in here. Dano, let's see if I picked the right one. You ready?
Did you pick the top one, top BitLocker or bottom BitLocker?
I picked the top one. This is the wrong one.
No, we didn't pick that.
Is it the right one? All right,
Yeah.
let's try this again.
Which one are you trying to show?
DI.
Nah.
What could go wrong?
All right. Let's try the second one.
Hey.
Let's try the second one.
Okay. Here's what Matt's going through right now. In the previous episode of Intune Training, we talked about how we're building certain all of these templates to be based on the unified settings platform. Some of them have bugs, and so we're working through some of those to make sure that it looks nice and works correctly before we launch it. And some people have tenants that are flighted for those things. So
some people do
So,
validation.
and this is another thing that if anyone's watching this stuff, one of the benefits of it is that we get access to things that we probably shouldn't always see. So keep watching because we have terrible editing.
Yeah.
Matt, would you like to drive in my tenant?
Yeah. No, it's fine.
No,
So,
you're good now. He hit the right one.
it's
Yeah.
fine. It's just
Yeah.
anyway. So here we go. We got BitLocker base settings, right? These are all the settings that you expect for BitLocker. Again, if you went into the settings catalog and tried to pick all these BitLocker settings out, which I don't think is BitLocker in the settings catalog, Mike.
Oh yeah, all
It
of
is?
them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then some. Some you shouldn't use.
Yeah.
Are
Right.
in there. Yeah.
So, it's pretty, you can be pretty sure that if you're an admin configuring BitLocker for the first time, you'd probably miss a setting that's pretty important. And if you miss that setting that's pretty important, you could spend hours troubleshooting why BitLocker doesn't get activated. And that's still possible here. I'm not saying it's impossible, right? But when all the settings are in one place, it makes it really easy for you to come through here and see what's going on, pick the things that matter. And that's sort of our goal behind templates is, hey, I know I need to configure BitLocker. Let me see the settings that I need to see and the ones that I should consider, right? So they're here. You can configure BitLocker through here. All the settings, everything is here for your consumption. There was a period of time where we had a few issues in the BitLocker side in endpoint security. There are a few MVPs who like to call that out. However, those are bugs, just like we get bugs everywhere else.
Sure.
If you show me a bug, I will get it fixed. Nobody ever, since I've started making that statement at the last MMS before COVID, nobody's shown me a bug that's been valid. So I'd love a bug that doesn't work if you're watching this video, and we'll fix it. But I challenge you to find one because I've tried every possible combination and I cannot find a bug.
Matt also really likes disproving bug
Oh,
flags. So
yeah, and make sure your TPM's enabled because don't come at me with this whole I can't BitLocker doesn't but the TPM isn't there thing. Yeah, so
I've almost gotten in fights with Matt at this point about some things. So
it's the
he's
referee bit.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, I just
It's okay for him to not follow the rules, but not for anyone else.
Oh, easy.
You know, whatever.
Okay.
He
So-
knows all the rules. He studies them.
Exactly.
He's an umpire.
Yeah,
Now, Matt, it's been a minute since I've looked in the settings, but there was a actually. Can you go back to the back into the policy? You're going to get the wrong one this time, surely. So there's a setting that I have deployed in my production environment. I was just double checking. So from settings catalog, and it's the silently enable BitLocker. It's the setting is called allow standard user encryption. Is that one in your settings now? In here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right here.
try that.
Yes. So now I can
hide third party.
So now I can get rid of that extra settings catalog setting that I had for that. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
this is a perfect example of what you're calling of what I just called out. I think in the settings catalog, you can just independently pick this setting.
Yes.
Yep.
What if you read the BitLocker documentation, you'll know this setting does nothing unless this other setting is configured. Right? So this is where we can take dependencies in our templates and make sure that hey, you configure this, now you can see this next thing, right?
Oh, actually, that one is nested under those. That is a
Okay.
combo setting in settings catalog.
I think it's because
But that's a good. I mean, you're calling out the right things. That's good. Yeah.
Well, I think Mike fixed it, right, Mike? So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I mey but there's 15,000 settings.
Mike, give yourself a hand.
So
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that with confidence.
There you go.
That's good.
There we go.
Well, good. This is great. I'm gonna work on production while you're finishing up.
That'd be great. Deploy it everywhere, you'll be fine. So there's
Straight
a
into
bunch of different
production.
things like that. So BitLocker today is only available for MDM devices. So let's pivot a little bit and talk about expanding this to other platforms real quickly, right? So other management engines. So Microsoft has two other management engines that you can use. You can use Configuration Manager, which I think a considerable amount of people use. And you can also use MDE as a management engine with Endpoint Manager. Now, when you configure these policies, and we'll just go into AV for a second, these all look and feel like the same, right? There's another thing you shouldn't have seen, but these all look and feel the same, right? So when I come in here, I create a policy, I create the settings, all this stuff, the same way that I configure settings for any other platform. What you'll notice, though, is that when I go to save these, these settings, I'm not going to
Hit F12. Hit F12 when you save it.
I'm not going to save it because I don't. You can tell how many demos I do, right? I got enough. I got enough policies to show what I need to show here.
Okay.
You'll notice that over here on the target platform, people always ask me like, "What does this mean?" Right? What does this sort of do?
What does that mean?
Yeah, great question.
What does it do?
How does it work?
What does it mean?
Where am I?
So you'll see I have some.
What's this portal?
Nobody knows. Okay, so we have this. We have MDM here, which should be self-explanatory, right? And then we have Configuration Manager, and then we have the other ones for MDM and Microsoft Sense, right? What this is sort of telling us is which management platforms do these apply to? These settings apply to. Today, any policy that you create that's supported through the MS Sense channel or the MDE channel will automatically be tagged that way. So when you deploy it to an Azure AD group, you can add the same policy, or you can add the same devices, MDE devices, MDM devices, whatever, the same group. They get the same exact policy. You're not recreating policy in 7,000 places. It's just the same policy. Everything's the same. Configuration Manager, we still use collections for targeting. And we could probably do a whole session on setting up tenant attach. I'm sure Adam's probably already done like 5 sessions on tenant attach. I mean, this is season 4. There has to be
we are a cloud only channel.
Oh, okay, all right, fine. But you can set up tenant attach.
You don't do hybrid either.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well. Sure. So you can set up tenant attach to publish collections and deploy policy there, right?
So
yeah, go ahead.
So Matt, just while you're going down that path, didn't I see a new thing recently where you guys have enabled the ability to onboard older server OSs like 2012 and things?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's exactly where I was going next. So I'm leading you right down the path that I want to go to, right?
Perfect.
Down Microsoft Defender for Endpoint channel, right? There's a few things you have to do to set it up. I'm going to walk through that real quickly, talk to you about what each option means, and tell you the platforms it applies to. It's real quick and easy to do. If you look inside of my tenant here, what you'll see is I have devices that are managed by Configuration Manager. I have devices that are co-managed. I have devices that are managed by Intune. I also have devices that are managed by MDE, right? And that's that new channel that you're talking about, Adam, is the MDE channel. MDE, we worked with MDE over the last 2 years. Previous Matt started it, Matt that fled back to Australia. And then I sort of helped finish it with the team from Defender and all our great engineers on our side, right? And what this allows us to do is this allows the Defender for Endpoint client on devices to enroll into Endpoint Manager, the client itself, and retrieve security policy from us. So that way we can make this a reality. This works on Windows client. I believe it's 1909 or 1809 or later. I have to check the docs. I don't remember. Both 2 out of support versions by more than a year support this, as well as on Windows Server 2012 R2 and later. So you got 2012 R2 devices and you're like, hey, I feel like putting 2012 R2 in Intune. You can do that with MDE, which is awesome. Actually, I think probably one of my devices here. Yeah, so this is actually, see it here first. This is actually a 2012 R2 piece of hardware right here. So that's a 639600. That one's communicating right now. Well, last contact, it's out on vacation right now. It'll be back. But yeah, so this is all, Defender for Endpoint there. The only caveat with that, with 2012 R2 and 2016, is that you need to use the Defender down level client. And you might ask yourself, what is this client you speak of? Older Defender installs require that you used the Microsoft Monitoring Agent, MMA, and then SCEP, System Center Endpoint Protection. Defender in April of this year, I believe, released a full Defender AV client with full Microsoft Sense. It's available to everybody who has a Defender for Server licensing agreement, right? Like if you're licensed to manage MDE on the device, on the server, then you can use this client as part of it. So yeah, that client has all the bits inbuilt and yeah, everything just works. It's awesome. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. So set it up. Yeah, set up like super easy. There's 2 toggles. Let me walk you through the 2 toggles.
So as you're getting there, the thing that I love about this is that, so in our org, because we do have some legacy dependencies, our security team, server team chose to go with a third party AV on our servers, because at the time when they had to, a year ago when they made this decision, this didn't exist. But I love the idea that, hey, we could potentially, we're fully E5 and all this stuff now. Like, why are we going to pay extra for this extra third-party tool now when we should be able to pick up those stragglers under the MDE umbrella and be able to get rid of that third party. So this is a good move. I really like it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like we've worked so hard to try and make it as awesome as we possibly can, and we're
it is awesome. Yeah. It is absolutely.
Yeah, and we're working, like, if you have any feedback, if you use this and you're like, hey, I wish it did X, Y, Z. The team's actively investing in building like more functionality in here. So feedback is always appreciated. Make sure we build the right thing. It's not just sort of like a one and done thing for us. We're not just going to ship it and then, just have it there. Like, we want to make the experience better. And that's something that I know our team is super focused on right now with the MDE team, to make sure that this gets even better than it already is. But it's pretty bulletproof, I think. You have a toggle here.
What's your preferred method for feedback? What's your preferred
Twitter at device deploy?
Okay.
Yeah,
at device deploy. Yeah,
at device deploy. Yeah.
Also, Dano, sorry, you asked a question, but you didn't have your hand up, so we weren't going to let you.
Yeah, that's actually now cut. What just happened is cut from the video now.
That's better, Mike. You had a question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was answered previously, actually. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, here we go. So there's two toggles. There's one on this side, right? Which is, this toggle is really meant to make sure that the Intune management, whoever runs Intune management, still has control over which devices enter their ecosystem. So this toggle here, you flip it on. This allows Defender for Endpoint devices to enroll into the Intune tenant. If this toggle is flipped off, the security admins can do whatever they want in MDE. The devices will fail to enroll, and they'll actually get a message that says, hey, you didn't talk to the Intune team first. This is disabled, and on the Intune side, you should probably go talk to them, right? So
bring stack to cache.
To talk.
Yeah. Already.
I think this is called DevOps.
Security and management teams together.
Yeah. Maybe it's called SecOps.
No, I've never heard of it.
Who knows? Okay, so if we come over here into settings and endpoints, there's a group down here called enforcement scope.
Can you do the zoomy bit just a little bit, Matt?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. How are we doing?
Hey,
here?
I'm looking out for our viewers, man.
No, this console doesn't scale as well as the MEM console.
I know, but I wanted to highlight that and show just how much better your engineers are than the security guys are.
Yeah. Okay. So enforcement scopes here, and this toggle will be flipped off. There's a couple key things I want to tell you guys about these settings, so you don't maybe enroll all your devices and not mean to. So this is an OR condition, and we're working on clarifying the docs here. So when you flip this toggle on, these checkboxes will be unchecked like this, right? And what this does, the notion here is that MDE will tell devices to enroll that come into scope, right? So there's two ways you can bring devices into scope. You can say, hey, enroll all client devices or enroll all server devices. You can do that. The second thing you can do is you can enable what they call pilot mode, which allows MDE to go in and tag individual devices that will then enroll. Okay, those are your two options. You can either pilot it, selectively target with device tags in MDE, which pretty self-explanatory on how to use, or you can enroll all of a platform. Some people ask me, why would I do all of a platform? Like, that sounds crazy. I'd want to roll it out in a staggered fashion. That's because this technology yields to Intune and Configuration Manager by default. So the notion here that you should think about is like, hey, this should fill the gaps in my environment where I don't have management already, right? That's sort of the notion is like, hey, I got 100,000 devices, 96,000 of them are either in Configuration Manager or Intune. I need to catch the other 4,000 that are onboarded to MDE. I flip this toggle, and MDE actually monitors the device and says, hey, if Config Man or Intune are here, then I'm just going to back off and do nothing. But if they leave for whatever reason, I'm going to enforce security. Yeah, I'm going to enforce security policy on this device.
That's cool. That's a really good way to handle this, because obviously your management platform should be priority.
Right.
And then, you want to catch the stragglers.
Right.
Well, the other thing I like about this is that it's, it creates that catch-all bucket to potentially find devices where maybe your management tools are broken, or, enrollment's not working or something. And why are these machines like in our environment? You can see it in the devices node, and you can see what's managing it. And I can see MDE devices sitting in the list, and it's like, why are these machines here? And some of them legitimately, yeah, that makes sense. But then some of them, maybe they shouldn't be MDE managed. Maybe they should be config manager, Intune managed, and they're not. And so it's a great way to kind of highlight that in the environment.
Yeah. It's awesome. The one thing we did add down here is this button that says Manage Security Settings with Configuration Manager. What we found is yielding to Configuration Manager might be too much for some customers, right? Like, I don't use Endpoint Protection and Configuration Manager, but I still need it for updates and app packaging and all that sort of stuff. I want to apply my security settings from MDE, but I want everything else to keep going through Configuration Manager. That's what that toggle does. When it's flipped in the position that's here, everything comes through config man. If I flip it off, Defender for Endpoint will manage security settings on the device. And that text changes dynamically as you flip the toggle.
What is it set to by default when you're filling this up?
I forget. It might be, I think it's on.
Probably on.
Yeah, it's probably on.
It's on.
Changes ship all the time, though.
Probably on.
Yeah. I mean, if you're watching this video today, it's probably on. If you're watching it a month or 2 months or 3 months from now, the important thing here is read this setting and make sure it's set to your intent. And that goes with any setting you set in any console. And we actually added dynamic language here. So it actually tells you what's going to happen based on the toggle.
That's cool. I like that.
So yeah, once that happens, the high level flow is this. Defender device will register to Azure AD. If a registration doesn't already exist for that device, it's not joined, anything like that. And then the device will enroll into MEM. I shouldn't say the device. I should say MDE on the device will enroll into MEM. So that's a very important distinction because Windows devices only have a single MDM slot. They only have a single slot for MDM enrollment. So this will not block that slot. And it will coexist with other MDMs. So if you use another MDM and you use MDE, but you need to do security management, that's fine. You turn on MDE, attach here, and you can coexist with other third-party MDMs that are out. It's no problem whatsoever. We had a single bug
Adam,
that's fixed now.
I don't have a mini.
Adam doesn't have a small hand, but
Yeah,
he's
sure,
got his
go
hand.
Sorry, hands in the
Must be a big question.
I was just going to confirm the toggle for it by default is off.
Okay, so the toggle by default is off. Flip it on. There you go.
Flip it on. All of the things are off, including the first radio button. Everything is off, and then you click the one, and then the rest of them are still off. So that's nice. You have to individually click all of them. That's a lot of clicks. But
yeah, I'll check with the MD.
I'm sure the security guys can click. I mean, they can get one a day or something. They can get a whole week's worth of work out of that.
I seem to remember there may have been clicking of the top toggle with no clicking. So if they were checked by default, people were just flipping the top toggle, and then the bottom toggles were causing intent they didn't intend. So let me check and make sure that should be flipped on by default. We'll get that fixed.
No, it is. It is on. What? What do you mean?
Didn't you just say it was off by default?
Everything is off by default. You have to go and enable MDE by default.
Correct. And then when you flip on the MDE toggle, what do you see?
Here, I will.
Let's see.
Just do the little screen share thing.
Triage on the fly here.
Oh, sorry about the zoom. I'm just this 4K monitor is just too
So
much.
unprofessional.
Humble brag.
So this I drilled
Oh
in.
no, my giant screen.
So then this is the experience.
Okay, so it's off by default.
That bottom one should be on. We're gonna get that fixed. By the time you watch this video, it'll be on.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know how long your editing crew takes, but by the time they get that done, we'll get that done.
Well, no, see, the good news is
Mal.
that we're so good at editing that we'll just update the video and we'll use deep learning to change what you're saying. It'll be great.
Very AI-driven way to do it. I like it.
We're gonna put a little hand over the button.
We're
We're gonna make it slide over with the hand.
edit this video.
No,
That's what I heard.
Not what I'm saying.
That's what I heard.
What we should do is we should just talk like this the entire time. It's very easy to edit it.
Okay, hang on, Mike. If you can, let's see if you can just use the hand to like stretch across the screen right
no
there. Let's see. Okay, so just reach over with the hand
3, 2, 1.
There it is. Done.
Oh boy. Oh man.
Editing.
We are professionals.
All right. Carry on. Carry on, Matt.
Oh boy. Okay.
Sorry, Matt.
So how do we get my screen back here, man? This is gonna be a long.
Just hit the bottom share
Share
button
button.
right there in your taskbar thing.
Oh, it says I'm already sharing. I think my producer has to move me back.
We got it.
You're good.
Okay, great.
Gotcha.
Now I got a picture-in-picture thing showing up. Nobody knows. Oh boy, playing picture-in-picture. We're just gonna go with it. Okay.
Chaos.
Absolute chaos. This giant screen I have. Okay, so all right. So let's get some people some useful stuff here rather than all this stuff. So a couple things you need to know. If the device is domain joined, it will try to hybrid join, which is everybody's favorite topic. The thing that you should know is if you want to do server 2012 R2 devices, there is a small, as of the recording of this video, there is a small update you have to make to an Azure AD Connect sync rule. That is all documented. You can do aka.ms/security management, I believe. And that should, the sync rule that you need to add, it's in there. That should ship whenever they ship a new version of Azure AD Connect. It's not a big enough item for them to ship a whole new version just for the change in the rule, as you might imagine. So just be aware of that if you need to manage server 2012 R2 devices, because that would be net new. That would be net new on that platform, right? Server 2012 R2 couldn't hybrid join prior to this. Okay, I think that's all I want to cover there. I want to sort of pivot into MDE P1 here and talk a little bit about attack surface reduction. Everything I've shown you here today is included in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint P1. There's a great blog article out there that discusses what is included with P1, what P1 is included with. P1 is included with M365E3. So that's a very important designation to call out. So that means that if you have M365E3, more than likely you're able to utilize everything I've just shown you here with Defender for Endpoint to get security management to those devices. I will caveat it. Microsoft licensing is as complex as solving, global political, scenarios at times. So we need to make sure that you should always make sure with your account professional with Microsoft or whoever that you have the licenses that you need to use stuff. It's super important. But with P1, you also get some other cool functionality, which I want to talk about. The thing I want to talk about today is ASR rules as well. Attack surface reduction rules are rules that block common actions on devices that are used for exploit. They're super valuable. People get scared turning them on. So I want to cover a little bit how to do it. So that way you guys...
why do people get scared turning
That's
them
actually,
on?
yeah, that's a good question. Why do they get scared?
I know.
Applications sometimes are written poorly and they do things they shouldn't do. And those applications are line of business. Nobody's immune from this. Microsoft has applications that'll trip. If you go too aggressively with a rule set, you may impact your organizations. But guess what? We have all the tools you need to make sure you know the impact before you roll something out. So I'm gonna cover that for you real quick. So
anyway, there you go. There's your capabilities.
Yeah, there you go. I think attack. Tell me the attack surface reduction rule.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
One,
text.
third one.
Number 3.
Yeah, if anybody says I don't know licensing,
Number 3 with a bullet.
Yeah, there we go. So if you go in to create an attack surface reduction rule policy, we support these via Windows 10 and later. We support them for Configuration Manager tenant attached devices. MDE attached, the MDE channel is in private preview right now. It'll probably ship pretty soon. We're hoping soon. So this will also apply to MDE devices coming through the MDE channel as well. Go ahead.
The platform name, a lot of I heard some feedback from folks because we had some that would say Windows 10 and Windows 11 and later, or Windows 10 and Windows 11 and Windows Server and later and things like that. We're working on making that better. If you see Windows 10 and later, it currently doesn't support MDE attach. If you see Windows 10, Windows 10 and Windows 11 and later,
Windows 10, Windows 11, and Windows Server. That's a good visual cue. That
means it's MDE enabled. There's a way you can tell on the graph call as well, which maybe we can talk Matt into opening up F12 and take a look at that.
Yeah, sure. So when you create rules, not with graph, because I'm a UX guy. You'll notice all the rules are here, right? And all the rules have sort of, I guess, 4 states. There's off, right? Which should be self-explanatory. I guess there's 5 states because we do not configure for everything. We're a tri-state team over here, which this would be sync state. I don't understand. So anyway, we have off, block, audit, and warn, right? Block is the most restrictive. Audit is the least restrictive, right? And warn will cause a prompt to the user, but allow them to override the action, right? So those are sort of how those work.
So why aren't they ordered like that instead of block, audit, warn?
Alphabetical.
Oh, it's not alphabetical because audit should be above block.
No, it's a different kind of alphabetical.
It's actually block is enum1, audit is enum2, warn.
It's numerical.
It's numerical. There we go. Yeah, it's number alphabetical.
Yeah, the real reason is that warn was added after block and audit.
Gotcha.
Be block and audit. So anyway, digress back here. So the audit mode, you can put everything here in audit mode. It's going to generate events when applications should have triggered rules or would have triggered rules. It does it silently, sort of in the background. There's not really an adverse impact that I'm aware of to endpoints by putting things in audit mode. Your performance, I'm sure, and there'll be somebody on the internet somewhere who shows me that on a machine with 2 gigs of RAM with a single VPU, it slows it down a fraction of a second. Like for modern machines, there isn't a material impact that I'm aware of to putting things in audit mode. So you can put these in audit mode. There's also down here today, there are exclusions for attack surface reduction rules. So you can exclude whole directories from all the rules. In October, November, we'll probably ship per rule exclusions, which are already supported by the engine, I believe. But that way you'll be able to put an exclusion just for this one rule, just for that rule, whatever. And then there's some CFA controlled folder access. You know, am I gonna? I'm not gonna get in control folder access. It'll go out of control. Let's just stick with ASR rules for a second. So when I put these in audit, you know, I deploy these out. Some people are like, okay, great. I put them in audit mode. How do I understand the impact? Right?
Game over.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just send them out. If you have
ASR enabled.
Yeah, right. If you go over into the endpoint, in Defender for Endpoint, there's a report here for attack surface reduction rules. And this is pretty incredible what happens here. So when I flip these to audit, so I only have block turned on in my environment because I like to be the most secure. It's top of mind for me all the time. But you'll see that I have reporting on what tripped the rules, right? So I have an LSAS credential leaking problem from Microsoft Edge and Google Update. It's probably the same shared. It's probably shared Chrome DLLs here that are doing this. But effectively what it looks like here is this updater is running in the system account and trying to get a credential to probably execute an update. So here you'll see that I have Project Blueberry might be here somewhere. Anyway, it's the whole point here is that I can flip these rules to audit mode and I can start to see the impact that they're going to have on my environment pretty quickly. I can start to see, like, it can give me the assurance of like, hey, I'm not going to break anything. I'm not going to, things aren't going to go haywire. And this is super important because there's 19, I think, ASR rules, something like that. And they mitigate a huge percentage of exploits and attacks. Like, you just think about some of them, like macros in Office or spinning up child processes from Office, a lot of common entry points that malware used to get on your system. And the biggest reason people don't deploy them is they don't know the impact. Well,
audit solves that. Yeah.
It's here. It's here. And it's
so,
yeah.
Matt, one of the questions I'd ask around this, and I'm sure our listeners would be asking, is how long should I be running an audit for?
I can't tell you that answer. Like, it's gonna be different for every organization, right? What I see most organizations do is after running it for a month or so, they see a set of rules that have triggered exactly 0 audits, 0 blocks, and the designation that those organizations make is like, these seem safe. And then there's a set of rules that have triggered 3 or 4 blocks, right? And those require some investigation. And then there's some rules that trigger thousands of blocks.
Like this LSAS one.
Yeah, like the LSAS one, right? And I either need to create an exclusion for that, right? So that way, this product, I can do all of that I can create an exclusion, right? Or I have to fix the app, fix what's going on. Or maybe I want it to be blocked, right? That's the other third thing is maybe this should be.
In our org, we're going down this journey now, and our security team has gotten into all of this, and we've been working very closely with them to slowly roll out they've turned things on in audit mode, they've turned things on in block mode. We've had issues where they've turned stuff on, and then we've had random weird issues happen, and use this report to very quickly identify, oh, hey, sorry, yep, that's we saw it, we see what's happening, we're looking into it, let's go turn this off or whatever. And so it's been extremely helpful to have this level of granularity for them to be able to work from. And I've been the one saying, no, please don't turn these things on, you're going to kill us, because it's the whole, like, these things always are that kind of that black box type thing where the process being blocked. Like one example was, I was working with someone. We went through this thing of getting setting something up in Outlook to trigger a process that they needed. It probably wasn't a great design, but we worked through it and it all worked. And then the next week, it stopped working, and it wasn't obvious why. I was like, she called me and said, I thought we just worked through this. Yeah, I know, it was working. And sure enough, the Defender guys saw this and said, oh yeah, look, that was us. We're blocking it, and here's why.
We saw it as a
and we were able to,
it.
but they had gone from audit to block mode over the weekend or whatever, and just happened to catch us right after we had just vetted everything out. But it was one of those deals where it wasn't obvious what was causing the block. But they were on top of it, and they were monitoring this. And so if you're going to do this, you've got to have the commitment to come in and make sure that you're not just causing weird help desk tickets all the time because nobody knows that you're doing this. You got to have some visibility.
Yeah, the biggest crime to ASR rules is somebody flipping them all to block because they think they're doing the right thing, and then they all get flipped to off.
I would love to talk about that. Yeah. So for anyone that's watching this that has been told that they just need to set this to block and never change anything, understand that this is a maturing process that should grow with your organization. And if you've got a process that that internal IT has installed and is meant to run and is meant to do these things, and you've vetted the product and that what it's doing, even though it's raising rules
or raising alerts,
whatever, if you know what the process is, it's okay. Don't just immediately block everything and say, well, that's it. This is supposed to be a growing process.
Yep.
Yeah, you're completely right. Like, we always talk about in security, you just have to be the one step higher than the least expensive target, right? Like, it's really like, you only want to be this. You only have to be the second slowest man in the woods running from the bear, right? Like, that's it. And the problem
that's why everyone goes camping with me.
Yeah, that's why everybody. and the problem with security is there's 10,000 bears in the woods. All you have to do here is this ASR rules fundamentally heighten your security posture as an organization from attackers. Like, they're not perfect. Nothing is perfect. Spoiler alert. But enabling these rules are a good way to heighten the cost of an attack on your endpoints. And like Ben just sort of said, like, the biggest crime against ASR rules is flipping them all to block. So that way the solution to the one issue on the executive's machine when he tries to launch a 15-year-old macro is to shut off all ASR rules because they broke something, because you're just fundamentally doing your organization.
Yeah.
And what's great is
it's not meant to remove. It's not meant to remove productivity.
Right.
I think one of the most amazing examples that I always run into, just in my sort of day to day, is that people have got these set up so aggressively that they block executables from inside, config manager content like caches and Intune caches, so that they try to install an application or they try to run a process that has been okayed, but it's been blocked by security because they've done a great job of blocking everything. And then when they reach out to people to assist, you go, well, you just need to unblock the things that you know should be okay. And they're like, well, we can't do that. Like, well, then you're doing security wrong.
Right.
You can target these too, right? Like if you have devices that you know are going to be running something, make the exception. But then if you have, if you want to say any device that becomes enrolled and isn't a part of these groups, yeah, sure, go ahead and block everything.
Yep. No, exactly. Exactly. It's all about being granular and deliberate with what you're doing, but also understand that, sometimes things need to be okayed and approved. So, yeah.
And Matt, to your point about the executive and, having that oops where you blocked his important thing and now we turn them all off. The thing that's, once again, wonderful about the granularity here is like you can, if anybody with a half a brain can come in here and say, no, we can just fix the one. We can see it on the list. We know exactly what happened and we can go and address it. And
or you just go on holidays.
Yeah, just go on holidays. That's what I recommend.
Yeah, I'd say that you got to know your organization, right? Like people have varying levels of tolerance of being yelled at by members of leadership. I like to think my tolerance is pretty high, as Mike could probably attest to. Some people do not have as high of a tolerance as I do, or Adam does, or Ben does.
Leadership's not always right. They're just louder sometimes.
Right.
They're just the loudest,
especially in middle management. Hey, Adam.
That's what I hear. Those guys.
Congratulations, by the way.
Untrustworthy.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so this is all goodness. This is targetable just like any other MEN policy. So come into MEN.
Matt, take me down the path of App Locker, because my wonderful security team, they've been going down this path, and one day they turned on application control or App Locker stuff in audit mode, and we all got reboots, and it was wonderful. And I was like, and then we've turned it off because of that. I was like, you can't. No, we're not. No thanks. How are people handling that stuff? Because it's terrible. The reboot.
Yeah. Hopefully Kim's not watching.
It's just one reboot.
It's just we got down to one. Yeah, no. So here's what I would tell you, and this is what I tell you: application control is the most useful security mechanism that you can implement to have complete control over what executes on your device. And with complete control over what executes on your device comes great responsibility to make sure that it's managed properly. There are Windows components that are required to be turned on, Windows features that are required to be enabled that cause that reboot, specifically for WDAC at the time of this recording. Do we still have the time of the recording thing up? So, I see some smiles, so I'm sure it's going to pop back up.
We're all looking for a pen and paper. There we go.
Yeah,
got it.
So, what I will say is this. WDAC policy, we've gotten feedback that it can be complex for some to manage. And the Intune team is working with the WDAC team to build a more streamlined policy management system. So that way it's easy for common people to manage WDAC policy. You don't need to be a WDAC expert to manage policy. We're playing around with some concepts there. WDAC has some built-in sort of, I'm getting in my mind, App Locker and WDAC are going together right now, but there's some useful concepts like managed installer, so make sure I can trust stuff that comes through Configuration Manager and through Intune, right? But not so long ago, probably you and everybody else in the world was talking about how I couldn't go to Windows 10 because I didn't know what apps were on my devices. And I couldn't upgrade. Right? And although those app inventories have, sort of gotten better, WDAC can require a different level of app inventory. So, I don't know what you expect me to say to you about this besides, you have to have rigorous control. You have to make sure that you're not just, sort of Ben said before, flip it all on and pray, the right way to handle WDAC at all.
I think I guess the thing that because I'm living it right now is I would like to use it, and yet the instant reboot is like why like you can put a grace period on every other reboot in the OS, but like and I understand it's a security control, but there should be, I don't know, it just feels like there could be a
Yeah, I'm sure that
more
there could be.
a nicer way to make it enabled.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to. I won't dox them on Intune training.
No, it's fine. It's
But
fine.
I will. We should get in touch about that reboot. I think it's something that we're looking at handling.
Okay.
And I think, if I remember correctly, that reboot happens because the platform is pretty eager to turn on App Locker, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
And to be fair, I agree with everything you said. I want to use it, and yet environmentally, it's not. It creates kind of a funky experience for us, and we want to have a better way to manage that before we can kind of go down that path. I think other folks might be in a similar position, and that's. But I totally agree with why we want to use it. It's just the first bump there is just kind of weird. Getting the reboot. I know it sounds silly. It's like, what the heck? It's just a reboot. But people like we just talked about loud executives. That's a thing,
Right.
Exactly. One of my best customers at the moment, they've got App Locker running, and their performance of their devices. How's this for a statistic? 15-second boot time, because they do not have any applications they do not know running in their environment, and that is the standard across their whole environment.
Wow.
That's amazing. And this is where going through and knowing what you've got in your environment and stopping your devs predominantly running crazy things in your environment and needing to have local admin. Absolutely. Have to run App Locker. Have to run it back.
Yeah, there's only two ways to manage this. Either you know everything you have and you spend the time inventorying it, or you accept that you don't know what you have and you spend time monitoring it and trying to block. Like those are your two patterns. People argue probably and say that there's 5 other ones. It doesn't matter. They all boil down to, do I know
At a
what's
minimum,
there?
it's those two. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Do I know what's there or not? And if it's not, then I have to beef up my monitoring capability. I have to beef up how I respond to events. I have to know how to,
Yeah.
So that's a conversation that I have a lot. Where I work and like what I've done previously as well is that like if you don't know what's in your environment, that's okay. It's the standard. The standard is that you don't know what your software landscape is in your environment. There are tools that you can use to find that out, and it's okay to admit that you don't know, but it's not okay to say that you don't know how to figure that out.
Yep.
Right.
And then use those tools once you're comfortable with that inventory and that landscape. Then you can start being aggressive about what you allow. But like it's okay if you're not at that point because most people aren't.
Correct.
And again, go in slices. You know what a
Yes.
dev box needs. Lock it down. This.
Yep.
Okay, maybe it's a little more ambiguous. Let's monitor. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've been using like third-party tools for this stuff for years, for least privilege stuff. The kind of the default rule set you get out of the box is block star, and then you open up things. So, okay, I'm going to allow things that are installed in trusted locations and things like that, and then you're basically stuck in this mode of always having to put exceptions in for things. And I mean, it provides a level of protection, but it also requires a fair amount of care and feeding and stuff. So, it's kind of tough. But ultimately it's the right things to help secure the environment. And it's also the right things that I think really help make the move from platform to platform a lot easier. We've, over doing OS upgrades multiple times over my career, every time we've done it, we've had a more identified, to Ben's point, we've identified more and more of our things. We had better control over our things. We had less scope creep, less people with access to install things over the years. And that has directly tied into how quickly we can move forward, from platform to platform, and even the costs associated with it. So anyway, I'm just dragging it on because I'm trying to make Ben been wet himself over there. So
It's not what's happening. It's not what's happening.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's all
It should be
good.
great. Yeah, like the least privileged stuff. Like I should come back and talk about like at Ignite we're going to do some announcements around endpoint privilege management, product we've been working on for a long time, about having organizations run standard user and helping them do that. We're going to talk a little bit about what's coming with Laps, Cloud Laps, from our friends in Azure AD and Intune. So I mean, like we do a whole session on running as least privilege and why that's beneficial, and we tie all this stuff together.
Is there user request for security.training?
Maybe.
We're not nerds.
No, I think we'll turn it into one of those like sleep apps,
Yeah, I mean, it'd be hard to beat out Intune training, but we'll see what we can do. Oh, geez,
Give
sorry.
it time. I think you'll do well.
Somebody better go lock that domain down because it's probably gone already.
I already purchased it, so.
There you go. Done. Love it. All right. So Matt, what else do you have? Anything? Anything for this round? Because I mean, this is just scratching the surface, really kind of highlighting some of the things that are here today and what's coming. What are your parting thoughts?
I think the biggest thing that I want to get across is a big goal of mine, our leadership, big goal of Dano, big goal of everybody on the policy and security team is to make it easier for our management teams and security teams to work together. And I think we gotta, as an organization and as a community, drive a little bit more, I would call it love in between security and management folks.
Yep.
It's really easy to say things like, Intune is becoming the core of endpoint management in Microsoft 365, right? And if we don't want splinters off of that core, we need to figure out how management teams can coexist with security teams and possibly other teams in the future. So that way we can have a consistent experience for device posture, and we have a consistent experience for device compliance. So that way we know when devices are doing bad things. And I think, that's where our sort of focus is like, how do we, Intune obviously is the device management engine for M365. And, how do we build integrations that make sense across Defender, across Office, across all these different areas that help this hub of device management sort of be more secure? And we can only do that if organizations adopt those things, right? And we can only do that if organizations, teams talk together. And, I often think about security and management as like, management's like driving a race car around a track at 200 miles an hour. You're always focused on what's directly ahead of you, keeping the race car off the wall. And security can feel like the person budgeting how much fuel you can use. So you're like constantly trying to, maybe I only go 150 around this corner so I can save fuel, right? And like, we need to work together so that way we all have shared goals. We don't burn things up as fast, right? Because honestly, I've been involved in plenty of incident responses. Once something happens, it doesn't matter whose fault it is or who configured what or when.
Yeah.
You just gotta it's going to be
just
everybody
resolve
working
the
together.
problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just
Organizations where the two work together, I see infinitely better results when security and management guys do basic things like go out to lunch and hang out and like know each other, right?
They shouldn't be dueling teams at all.
Right.
They are the end state is the same thing. It is making sure that the devices are secure and the people that use them can do what they need to do and get home and not have to think about the device.
So I'd add one extra thing there is the goal should also be a performance.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the role of management. Like if you think about the endpoint, it's security and performance. Security should naturally pull you towards more secure and less performant. In management, hearing directly from end users should naturally pull you in the other direction, and the result should be landing somewhere in the middle. That's how it always should be.
Totally.
It should be an even pull, so you're right in the middle. Yeah.
It's
Right.
the triangle.
Right.
You've got
And that's
users, security, and management.
Right. Right, and that's really your role as management professional. I assume there's very few security people watching this because they watch security.training, but I would say that that's really the goal. Like when you're in management, it's like, hey, security people don't hate you. They have a set of goals to keep the device secure, right? The most secure device in the world is a device that isn't a tight blue screen loop. It continually blue screen loop.
No, the most secure device is one that doesn't have electricity connected to it.
Yeah, sure, fine. So yeah, same premise. But it's our job to work together and make sure that the device can be used, right? People can be productive. So I'm always interested to hear about challenges organizations have working together. I've done a lot of it in my career. I didn't always work at Microsoft. I ran some of the largest infrastructures in the world. Humble brag. So it'll be fine. I get you. I know.
But it was bad for me to brag about my monitor. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we
all
want
got
to learn, we
monitors
want to
than
know, and Microsoft is always listening. Always, even if it seems like we're not.
Yep.
We are.
Yeah, because they're monitoring it through my computer. I know.
I wouldn't say that. That went dark pretty fast. But what I would say is, if you think you tweet us and we don't hear, we hear, and we hear loud and clear. And you need to keep doing it as much as possible. We need all the feedback we can get. So don't be shy. Get on Twitter. Create another Twitter account that's not attached to your real personality. I don't care. As long as I get the feedback, I don't care. I just want to know what you're thinking. So
we might not reply, but we usually read it.
Yeah. But sometimes it may not be advantageous for us to reply. Hopefully everybody can understand that.
Yeah.
But yes, we do read everything, and it does come up. So I've tried to stretch this outro out so long because I think Ben wants to get up and leave, but no,
I'm
he's
good.
still good.
I could be here for hours.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. But yeah, we should.
Because Steve's got to sleep in that bed.
Oh, jeez. Here we go. But yeah.
All right.
Was that what you were looking for, Adam? You want me to give you something else?
Give me an hour-long dissertation on why your internet quality just dropped significantly.
Yeah, you just got
Midnight.
really fuzzy.
After midnight, his internet turns into a pumpkin.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I think maybe Adam is knocking down my stream quality, so that way he's like, "Oh, sorry, dude, you're breaking up. We gotta go. Bye."
Yeah, I mean, Dana's basement quality is still better than your basement quality at this point. I mean, we can almost count the pixels at this point.
Mine?
Yeah.
I look perfect. The way I see it.
Matt,
Yeah,
I don't
you
know
do.
if you're aware. I saw you wearing glasses earlier. Perhaps you need to put them back on. You'll see.
Stand by. Although you can't see them because they're pixelated.
Oh, that's so much better. That's so much better.
Yeah.
Look.
Oh yeah, it actually did. That was great. Actually.
That did crisp it up. That's neat.
Sorry,
Yeah, we're
I
still
like to have everybody seeing through my eyes. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
Matt,
cool.
everybody. Matt call. There we go. Well done.
Oh, that's awesome. That's the actual Brian picture.
This is actually no. I'm just showing you the pixels. This is how much pixels we had from your camera.
Oh, well, it's a trend. It's just a
All right,
filter.
at some
I gotta
point we
turn
will
that.
hit end on this video. All right, well, thank you guys both for sticking around tonight for our two-parter episode. Matt, Mike, well done, guys. Thank you so much. We always learn so much from you guys. And just really another plug, if you made it this far and you're still here, MMS MOA, MMSMOA.com. Just the registration just went live today, I believe. And it's May, first week of May. And I bet you that probably all of us will be there. I really hope. But these guys have been there and are present some of the best sessions that you will find anywhere. So don't miss it. If there's no other reason to show up.
This past one was my first one. I thought it would be maybe too in depth for me because I think there's some thoughts that it's very much like a config manager focus thing, but I was quite at home. It was great.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was good stuff. With all that said, thanks everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Later, Gators.